You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. In a legal battle that has captivated the nation, R&B superstar R. Kelly finds himself at the center of a judicial storm that has raised serious concerns about the fairness of the American justice system. With a career spanning decades and a massive fan base across the entire globe, the legal proceedings against R. Kelly have been anything but straightforward. Now with Jennifer Bonjean, who is a formidable and highly respected attorney leading his defense, the Supreme Court is warming up to witness arguments that could potentially expose the breaking of laws and the violation of fundamental rights. The recent ruling by the Chicago Appeals Court dealt a disappointing blow to Kelly's legal team, but it also paved the way for a critical appeal to the highest court in the land. And that is the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And make no mistake, this time the stakes couldn't be higher. One of the most powerful arguments put forth by attorney Jennifer Bonjean revolves around the statute of limitations. A legal safeguard designed to ensure that justice is pursued within a reasonable time frame. Bonjean has meticulously pointed out that the prosecution relied on a 2003 amendment that was never intended to be applied retroactively. This alone should render many of the charges against R. Kelly null and void.
Retroactivity doesn't mean an ex post facto violation. And retroactivity could be an ex post facto violation, but it doesn't mean an ex post facto violation. And so we are in this category where we acknowledge that the government that this was not, again, a situation where the statute of limitations has expired, but it was still retroactive. And there are still considerations that this court considered, and that the United States Supreme Court has said the starting place. And in Landgraf, the court says the default position is prospectivity. So we shouldn't start with the retroactivity unless otherwise. 2C says criminal statutes should be interpreted in favor of repose. So those general principles, those canons, need to be the starting point. And I think lower courts, to some degree, have gone wayward from that. I think the U.S. Supreme Court might get us back on track with that. And I know some.
But if the language is clear.
In simple terms, laws are not supposed to work backward. Congress does not permit retroactive application of new laws and makes it illegal. And the courts have long held that individuals cannot be prosecuted for offenses under legal interpretations that were changed after the alleged acts took place. This fundamental principle of fairness was completely disregarded in R. Kelly's case, a point that the Supreme Court will not overlook. If justice is to be served, then the Supreme Court must recognize this blatant overreach and dismiss the expired charges against the R&B King. But the miscarriage of justice does not stop there. Like we mentioned in our previous video release, even the sentencing in this case raises serious concerns. Judge Harry Leinenweber issued an above guidelines range sentence that Bonjean argues was unjustified. The sentence appears to have been influenced by factors outside the legal framework, raising the question whether R. Kelly was sentenced based on emotion and public perception rather than solid legal principles. In a system that claims to be based on the rule of law, it is unacceptable for a judge to exceed sentencing guidelines without clear and justified reasons. Jennifer Bonjean has not only challenged this judicial overreach, but she has also exposed the inconsistencies and biases that have tainted this entire process. This is not the first time the Supreme Court has stepped in to correct a judicial mistake, and it certainly won't be the last. When the highest court in the land reviews this case, it will have no choice but to acknowledge the inconsistencies, the broken statutes and the procedural errors that have been glaringly ignored thus far. The beauty with this case is that it will not only see one man R. Kelly return to freedom, but will set a precedent for how the law treats high-profile individuals, and whether fundamental legal principles can be bent or ignored in the face of public scrutiny. If R. Kelly can be denied his rights, what does that mean for the average citizen facing the unfair and racially divided justice system? If statutes of limitations can be bypassed for one case, what prevents the government from applying the same approach to every other case where the defendant is a black man, or a high-profile individual being targeted for other reasons? This is in fact an eye-opener that calls for deeper investigations into many other cases of this nature that could have seen defendants' rights violated and such important legal principles ignored. It is critical that we demand fairness not just for R. Kelly, but for every person who may one day find themselves in the crosshairs of an overzealous prosecution. Whether you are a fan of his music or not, the fact remains that every defendant deserves a fair trial, and laws must be applied correctly without bias or retroactive overreach. Jennifer Bonjean's arguments are not just persuasive. They are bulletproof. She has laid out the violations of law so clearly that even those unfamiliar with legal jargon can grasp the extent of the injustice. The Supreme Court will not waste time on political theatrics in the courtroom. The expired charges, the over-the-line sentencing, and the disregard for legal precedent. These are issues that the highest court takes very seriously. And if history is anything to go by, justice will eventually prevail. As we wait for the Supreme Court's decision, one thing is clear. The law must be upheld and not manipulated. The world is watching. The question is whether the Supreme Court will deliver justice, or will it allow a dangerous precedent to stand? I guess time will tell. If you believe in the integrity of the justice system, make sure to share this video. Let the truth be heard. If you want to be featured in our video releases, send us your clips by emailing them to hnnewsroom242@gmail.com or use Google Drive for larger files. Be sure to include your name and any details you'd like us to know. We can't wait to showcase your contributions. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say. To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.